Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. I love seeing how our global community of achievers connects through these stories of triumph against the odds. She was the only black woman in a room full of privileged men with custom firearms. Their laughter stopped the moment she pulled the trigger. The sound of perfectly synchronized applause echoed through the Hawthorne Marksman Club as Alexander Preston lowered his custom Benelli, a satisfied smirk spreading across his face. The electronic target display showed his fifth consecutive bullseye, eliciting appreciative nods from the circle of wealthy patrons surrounding him in their designer shooting gear. This was his domain, a world where privilege, pedigree, and precision created an impenetrable barrier between the elite and everyone else. Dr. Maya Washington stood quietly near the entrance, her Hermes briefcase held close, observing the spectacle with measured interest. At 38, she was the CEO of Resonance Biotech, a rising pharmaceutical company developing breakthrough treatments for autoimmune diseases. Her tailored charcoal pantsuit and crisp white blouse were immaculate but understated, professional attire that commanded respect in boardrooms but seemed almost deliberately muted in contrast to the flamboyant affluence displayed around her. The receptionist, a young woman with expensively highlighted hair and a practiced smile, glanced up briefly before returning to her computer screen as though Maya were merely a distraction. "Excuse me," Maya said, her voice calm but clear. "I have a reservation for today's guest session." The receptionist looked up again, this time allowing her gaze to travel from Maya's modest pearl earrings to her sensible heels. "Members and sponsored guests only," she replied dismissively. "The public ranges are across town." Maya removed an embossed invitation from her briefcase. "I received this from your Director of Community Engagement. Ambassador Program, I believe." Preston noticed the exchange from across the room. At 45, he was at the peak of his influence, 8-time national champion, Olympic silver medalist, and the face of Benelli's luxury line. His family's banking fortune had given him access to the finest training since childhood, and his natural talent had done the rest. "Well, look what we have here," Preston called out loudly, drawing attention to Maya. "Seems someone's GPS malfunctioned on the way to the diversity luncheon." His companions laughed on cue, causing heads to turn toward Maya, who maintained her composed expression, chin slightly raised. Catherine Reynolds, the club's operations director and a former competitive shooter herself, emerged from her office, frowning at Preston's comment. "Dr. Washington," she said, extending her hand. "We're pleased to have you join us. The Ambassador Program is designed to introduce accomplished professionals to the sport. Please, follow me." As they walked through the facility, Catherine provided a running commentary on the club's illustrious history, the championships hosted there, and the prestigious membership. Maya noticed the subtle glances from other members, some curious, some dismissive, some openly hostile. "Here we are," Catherine said, showing Maya to a station at the beginner's range. "William will be your instructor today." A middle-aged man approached, his expression neutral. "Ma'am, have you ever handled a firearm before?" "I have some experience," Maya replied quietly. From 20 yards away, Preston had migrated closer with his entourage. "20 says she can't hit the paper," one of them joked. "Make it 2,000, Preston countered. "I bet she's never touched anything more dangerous than a stapler." Preston approached Maya's station, his cologne announcing his presence before his voice did. "Dr. Washington, is it?" he said, his false politeness barely disguising his condescension. "I'd be happy to offer some pointers. A woman in your position probably doesn't get much exposure to these sorts of activities." Maya met his gaze directly, her dark eyes steady. "Thank you, but I believe I'll manage." Preston's smile widened. $5,000 says you can't hit the bullseye from 25 yards. First shot. William, the instructor, shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Preston, perhaps we should allow Dr. Washington to practice first. 10,000, Preston interrupted, eyes locked on Maya. If by some miracle you make the shot, I pay. If you miss, you acknowledge publicly that this elite sport requires years of dedication, not just affirmative action invitations. Catherine had returned during this exchange, concern evident on her face. Alexander, this is inappropriate. It's fine, Maya said, her voice cool and measured. She adjusted the bracelet on her left wrist, a simple band of braided leather worn beneath her designer watch. I accept your challenge, Mr. Preston. With one condition: when I win, the money goes to the Westwood Youth Development Center. Preston's eyebrows shot up in surprise before his expression settled into smug certainty. Agreed. Although that, when, is quite presumptuous. As Maya picked up the standard Glock from the shooting table, no one noticed the subtle shift in her posture, spine straightening, shoulders relaxing, feet positioning precisely. No one recognized the expert grip and the controlled breathing pattern. And certainly, no one connected the simple braided bracelet on her wrist to Colonel Marcus Washington, one of the most decorated Army Rangers in modern military history. 4 years earlier, Maya had stood beneath a slate-gray sky at Arlington National Cemetery. The crisp report of the honor guard's rifles punctuated the solemn silence as she received the folded flag that had draped her father's casket. Colonel Washington had served his country for 28 years, earning multiple commendations for valor and exceptional marksmanship. Their relationship had been complicated. A widower raising a brilliant daughter, the colonel had high expectations and a military approach to parenting that sometimes felt rigid. But beneath his strict exterior was a father determined to prepare his daughter for a world that would judge her more harshly and offer her fewer opportunities because of both her gender and her race. Twice as good to get half as far, he would tell her during their weekend shooting sessions, which began when Maya was just 12. Control is power, Maya. Control your breath, control your mind, control your aim. What started as her father's attempt to share his world became their sacred ritual. When she entered Harvard Medical School, their range time became precious reconnections during holidays. When she became the youngest research director at Johnston Pharmaceuticals, they celebrated with a day at an elite shooting range in Virginia. And when she called to tell him she'd been named CEO of Resonance Biotech, making her one of only 3 black female CEOs in the pharmaceutical industry, he had said simply, "You've always had perfect aim, Maya." Now, standing in the Hawthorne Marksman Club with Preston's challenge hanging in the air, Maya felt her father's presence as strongly as the grip of the Glock in her hands. Maya took a deep breath, held it for precisely 2 seconds, then released half of it slowly. Her focus narrowed to 3 points: herself, the weapon, and the target. The club faded away, the murmurs, the sidelong glances, Preston's smirk, all dissolved into background noise. She squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, clean and precise in the suddenly hushed range. Through the settling echo, the mechanical whir of the target retrieval system seemed unnaturally loud. Preston maintained his amused expression, though uncertainty flickered across his features as he noted Maya's textbook stance. The target moved slowly toward them, building suspense with each mechanical click. When it finally arrived, a perfect hole marked the dead center of the bullseye. The silence that followed was absolute, a vacuum of sound where Preston and his entourage struggled to process what they were seeing. Maya calmly placed the Glock on the counter, her expression unchanged. Preston snatched the target, examining it with growing disbelief. "Beginner's luck," he finally declared, his voice carrying a sharp edge. "Anyone can get lucky once." Catherine stepped forward, professional composure barely masking her admiration. "That was an exceptional shot, Dr. Washington." "Thank you," Maya replied. Before she could say more, Preston interjected. "Hold on. One lucky shot doesn't prove skill. Let's see if she can do it again, this time with actual stakes. An uncomfortable murmur ran through the growing crowd of spectators. $50,000, Preston announced, pulling his phone out to display his banking app. If you can hit 3 bullseyes in a row at 50 yards. If you miss even one, you publicly admit this was just a fluke and that real shooting requires years of dedicated training. Senator James Willis, one of the club's most prominent members, placed a cautioning hand on Preston's shoulder. "Alexander, perhaps this isn't appropriate." Preston shrugged off the touch. "What's wrong?" "Afraid her luck won't hold." Maya considered simply walking away. She had come today only because the club's community engagement director had reached out to Resonance Biotech as part of a diversity initiative. The invitation had been sitting on her desk for weeks until yesterday, the 4th anniversary of her father's funeral. But something in Preston's dismissive arrogance awakened a familiar fire within her, a sense of injustice not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been underestimated or excluded based on appearance rather than ability. "I'll take your challenge," Maya said evenly. "Same condition. When I win, the money goes to Westwood Youth Development Center." Preston's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Fine by me." As Maya moved to the 50-yard line, Catherine approached her. "Dr. Washington, you should know that Mr. Preston holds the club record at this distance. No one has beaten his score in 7 years." Maya nodded, appreciating the warning. "Thank you for your concern, Ms. Reynolds, but I'll be fine." Catherine studied her, noting the quiet confidence that seemed at odds with Maya's first-time visitor status. Preston was making a spectacle of the event. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced to the substantial crowd that had gathered. "We are about to witness either the most impressive fluke in shooting history or the most embarrassing failure." Maya loaded fresh magazines methodically. As she prepared, memories of her father's lessons filtered through her mind. When the pressure's on, he had told her, fall back on your training. Let your body remember what your mind might forget under stress. For the first shot, Maya took slightly longer to aim, adjusting to the increased distance. The crack of the gun was followed by another perfect hit. Preston's jaw tightened visibly. The second shot came more quickly, with Maya adjusting her stance minutely before firing. Another bullseye. Before taking the third shot, Maya touched the braided leather bracelet, feeling her father's presence as strongly as if he were standing beside her. The final shot split the air and hit dead center again. Preston's face had drained of color, his expression frozen between disbelief and fury. Catherine returned with the 3 targets, displaying them for verification. There was no question, 3 perfect shots at a distance that would challenge even experienced marksmen. "Congratulations, Dr. Washington," Catherine said, unable to keep the admiration from her voice. "That was remarkable." Preston snatched the targets, examining them with increasing desperation. "This is impossible," he hissed. "No one walks in off the street and shoots like this. Something isn't right." Maya remained calm, though steel entered her voice. "I believe we had an agreement, Mr. Preston." "Agreement with someone who's clearly hiding something," Preston's voice rose. "I'm not paying $50,000 based on some trick." Catherine intervened. "Mr. Preston, Dr. Washington's performance was witnessed by dozens of members, including Senator Willis. The shots were legitimate." Preston rounded on her, his finger jabbing the air inches from her face. "Know your place, Catherine. One word from me to the board and you'll be looking for a new position." The threat silenced Catherine, but her expression hardened. Maya watched the exchange with quiet intensity. "If you're accusing me of something, Mr. Preston, perhaps we should move this discussion to a more private setting." Preston misinterpreted her intent. "Private so you can avoid the consequences." No, let's settle this right here. He turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a real challenge. 1 week from today, a formal competition. Me versus our mystery markswoman. 10 stations, varying distances, club-provided equipment to ensure everything's fair. Maya realized she had unknowingly stepped into something much larger than a simple challenge. Part of her wanted to retreat back to the familiar world of pharmaceutical boardrooms and clinical trials, but a stronger part knew this had become about more than just shooting. I accept, she said quietly. Same terms. If I win, $50,000 to the Westwood Youth Development Center. Preston's smile didn't reach his eyes. Deal. And when I win, you publicly explain whatever advantage you've been hiding. As the crowd dispersed, Catherine approached Maya again. That was either very brave or very foolish, she said. Alexander doesn't lose gracefully, and he has considerable influence here. Maya nodded, the adrenaline fading, leaving her feeling contemplative. I didn't come here looking for confrontation, Ms. Reynolds. I came here to honor a promise. Catherine studied her thoughtfully. Yet you shot like a professional. Who are you really, Dr. Washington? Maya gathered her belongings. Just someone keeping a connection alive, she replied, her voice softening. What neither Maya nor anyone else knew was that Preston was already on his phone, instructing his personal assistant to find every piece of information about Dr. Maya Washington, no matter what it took. The tremor in his voice betrayed more than anger. It revealed fear. Because Preston had recognized something in Maya's shooting that the others had missed, the distinctive technique of military training, executed with a precision that couldn't be faked. News of the confrontation spread quickly through Boston's upper circles. By evening, Alexander Preston was inundated with messages from friends, rivals, and journalists seeking details about the mysterious black woman who had challenged his supremacy. Seated in his penthouse overlooking the Charles River, he swirled aged bourbon in a crystal tumbler, his post-victory celebration ritual now a means to calm his frayed nerves. Victoria Chambers, his girlfriend and the heiress to a hotel empire, scrolled through her phone, monitoring the social chatter with increasing concern. They're calling her the executive sharpshooter, Victoria reported. Someone posted a video of her final shot. It's already gone viral. Preston drained his glass. One lucky day doesn't make her a marksman. By next week, everyone will know there's more to this story. Victoria looked up, her expression unusually serious. Alexander, darling, those weren't lucky shots. I've watched you compete for years. She's good. Really good. The sharp ring of his phone interrupted their conversation. Preston checked the caller ID, immediately straightening as he recognized his investigator's number. Tell me you found something, he demanded without preamble. The voice on the other end was measured. Plenty, Mr. Preston. Dr. Maya Washington, 38, CEO of Resonance Biotech. Harvard Medical School, MBA from Wharton. Impressive career trajectory. But here's what you're looking for, she's the daughter of Colonel Marcus Washington, U.S. Army Rangers, deceased 4 years ago. Highly decorated sniper instructor. Preston felt a chill run through him. A military sniper's daughter? Not just any sniper, the investigator continued. Colonel Washington was nicknamed the Professor for his methodical approach and his role in developing advanced marksmanship training protocols for special forces. According to my sources, he trained his daughter personally from childhood. Is there anything else? Preston asked, his voice carefully controlled. Just one thing. Dr. Washington chairs the board of Westwood Youth Development Center. The organization was founded with her father's military pension and provides mentorship, academic support, and recreational opportunities for underprivileged youth in Boston's poorest neighborhoods. Preston ended the call and sat motionless as the implications settled over him. Maya Washington wasn't just lucky, and she wasn't a fraud. She was the protégée of a legendary military marksman. The narrative Preston had constructed of exposing an amateur's lucky streak was collapsing. Worse, the alternative narrative forming in its place was far more compelling, a successful black woman honoring her father's legacy through the skills he had taught her, challenging the privileged champion who had mocked her. Across town, Maya was unaware of Preston's discovery as she focused on her own preparations. On Thursday evening, she received a call from Catherine Reynolds. "Dr. Washington, I wanted to update you on the competition details for Saturday. There's been a change. Alexander has requested and the board has approved a modification to the scoring system. Each station will now be weighted based on difficulty, with the final station counting for 30% of the total score." Maya absorbed this information, recognizing the strategic manipulation. "Let me guess, the final station involves a firearm that Mr. Preston particularly excels with." Catherine's hesitation confirmed Maya's suspicion. "It's a custom Barrett Murad, a long-range precision rifle that Alexander has exclusive experience with at the club." Light creases formed between Maya's brows as she calculated the implications. She had extensive handgun training from her father, but significantly less experience with specialized long-range rifles. After the call, Maya sat at her desk contemplating her next move. If Preston was investigating her background, he would soon discover her father's identity. What had begun as a simple challenge was evolving into something that could affect both her professional reputation and the memory of her father. The next morning, Maya cleared her schedule and drove to a specialized range outside the city where she had arranged private access to practice with long-range rifles. As she pulled into the parking lot, she noticed a familiar figure, Sergeant James Wilson, her father's former colleague and one of the few people who had attended his private funeral. "Dr. Washington," he said, extending his hand. "Your assistant called. Mentioned you might appreciate some pointers on the Barrett MRAD." Maya smiled, the first genuine smile since the confrontation at Hawthorne. "James. It's good to see you." For the next 4 hours, Wilson guided Maya through the intricacies of the high-precision rifle. "The colonel taught you well with handguns," he observed as she completed a series of increasingly accurate shots. "You have his patience and breathing control. This isn't so different, just magnified. Trust what you know." By early afternoon, Maya was consistently hitting targets at distances that would have seemed impossible days earlier. As they packed up, Wilson handed her a small notebook. "Your father's distance calculations and wind adjustment formulas. He developed them himself. Thought they might come in handy tomorrow." Maya accepted the notebook with reverence. "Thank you, James. I can't express what this means to me." Wilson's expression softened. "The colonel was more than my superior officer, Maya. He was my friend. He talked about you constantly, how proud he was of your accomplishments, your character. He always said you had the steadiest hands he'd ever seen." As Wilson departed, Maya realized that her private challenge had expanded into something larger, a representation of values that extended beyond the immediate competition. It had become a symbolic confrontation between different worlds, the privilege that Preston embodied versus the excellence her father had represented, flamboyant wealth against understated service. In his penthouse that evening, Preston received the final confirmation of Maya's connection to the legendary Army Ranger. With each new detail, Marcus Washington's service record, his reputation within the military community, the circumstances of his death during a training exercise, Preston's confidence eroded further. He poured himself another drink, dismissing Victoria's concerned glance. "It doesn't change anything," he insisted. "Experience wins over sentiment every time. Victoria watched him with increasing unease. "Alexander, maybe it's time to reconsider. Pay the charity. Cancel the competition. This is becoming a PR minefield." Preston slammed his glass down. "Cancel and confirm every whisper that I'm afraid of her. No, tomorrow happens exactly as planned." He reached for his phone, dialing a number from memory. "It's Preston. Is everything arranged for tomorrow?" The conversation that followed was brief. After ending the call, he turned to find Victoria watching him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. "What was that about?" she asked quietly. Preston's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just ensuring a level playing field, my dear. Nothing more." The Hawthorne Marksman Club buzzed with unprecedented activity on competition day. The club's board had opened the event to select members of the press, transforming a private duel into a premium publicity spectacle. Inside, Catherine Reynolds supervised final preparations, noting subtle inconsistencies in the equipment at several stations, adjustments positioned to disadvantage anyone unfamiliar with their unique characteristics. Maya arrived dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, her hair pulled back in a sleek chignon, carrying only a small leather portfolio containing her father's notebook. Catherine met her privately, voice lowered. "I've completed the equipment check. There are irregularities, nothing I can officially flag, but enough to advantage someone with intimate knowledge of these specific firearms." Maya nodded. "Thank you for letting me know." Preston arrived surrounded by sponsors and entourage, dressed in logo-emblazoned gear. Approaching Maya, his smile failed to reach his eyes. "Dr. Washington, I trust you slept well." The subtle emphasis on her name implied he had discovered her connection to Colonel Washington. "I should warn you, the pressure can be overwhelming for those unaccustomed to the spotlight." Maya met his gaze steadily. "I'll manage, Mr. Preston. My father taught me about performing under pressure." The competition area resembled a stadium with digital displays showing scores and 3 certified range masters officiating. As Maya prepared for the first station, she noticed James Wilson seated discreetly in the back row, alongside several men and women with the unmistakable bearing of military personnel. Wilson's subtle nod bolstered her resolve. Through the first stations, Preston's technique showed years of competition experience, flawless and precise. Maya's approach was different, quieter, more economical, with a stillness between shots that spoke of intensive training. By the 4th station, Preston held a slight lead thanks to his competition experience. At the 5th station, Maya noticed the equipment issue, the trigger pull on the Beretta was subtly heavier than standard. Recalling her father's words, "Conditions change. Adapt and overcome," she adjusted her stance and matched Preston's score despite the handicap. As the competition progressed, a pattern emerged. Preston excelled with competition-style firearms, while Maya demonstrated remarkable consistency across all platforms, particularly military-grade weapons. By the 8th station, Preston's lead had narrowed to a statistically insignificant margin. The audience grew increasingly vocal in support of Maya, captivated by her quiet competence against Preston's showmanship. Before the 9th station, Preston approached Maya. "Impressive performance, Dr. Washington. The professor would be proud." The deliberate use of her father's nickname was unmistakable. "His techniques are distinctive. I did my homework." Maya's hands stilled momentarily, but her expression remained controlled. "Then you know he valued integrity above all else, Mr. Preston. Something to consider as we finish today's competition." When the 9th station concluded, the scores were virtually tied. The competition would be decided entirely by the final, most challenging station, the Barrett Murray D at an exceptional distance. Maya immediately noticed subtle adjustments to the scope and stock. Rather than protesting, she consulted her father's notebook, finding his formulas for compensating for equipment variations. Preston completed his sequence first, placing 9 of 10 shots within the innermost rings. His final score set a benchmark requiring near perfection for Maya to overcome. "Not everyone is built for championship pressure," he remarked loud enough for nearby spectators to hear. Taking position behind the rifle, Maya felt a peculiar calmness descend, the same focused state her father had described from his missions. She made adjustments based on his formulas, compensating for the subtle sabotage with techniques born of combat experience. Her first shots hit with perfect precision. By the sixth, all bullseyes, the audience leaned forward in collective anticipation. As she prepared her final shot, a sharp reflection of light flashed across her sightline, a momentary distraction from someone near Preston's entourage. Maya paused, then refocused. With absolute control, she sent the final round downrange with unwavering precision, a 10th consecutive bullseye that surpassed Preston's performance. The crowd erupted in spontaneous applause that transformed into a standing ovation. Final results: Dr. Maya Washington, 1st place. Alexander Preston, 2nd place, Catherine announced officially. Preston's sportsmanship mask slipped, revealing raw fury as he offered a perfunctory handshake. "This isn't over," he whispered. Maya replied calmly, "For today it is. And I believe you owe $50,000 to the Westwood Youth Development Center." Preston's facade crumbled completely. "You think this proves anything? That a weekend hobby can replace years of championship experience?" The equipment was clearly suspect. "The equipment was indeed suspect, Mr. Preston," Catherine cut in, holding up her tablet displaying security footage of Preston's technical advisor tampering with the competition firearms. "But not in Dr. Washington's favor. The club's security system records all access to the equipment room." The revelation sent shock through the audience, transforming admiration for Maya's performance into deeper respect, excellence achieved despite deliberate sabotage. Preston stood frozen, registering not only the loss of the competition but the potential destruction of his reputation and career. By Sunday morning, video clips of Maya's perfect final sequence and Preston's meltdown had spread across media platforms, transforming a niche sporting event into a broader narrative about privilege, excellence, and redemption. Maya awoke to dozens of messages from journalists and sponsors but responded to none, making only a call to her assistant to clear her Monday schedule. "I need time to process next steps," she explained. At the Preston penthouse, his crisis team strategized damage control. "We issue a statement citing extreme pressure, acknowledge a lapse in judgment, announce a donation to urban youth causes, and check into a wellness retreat," his publicist suggested. Preston refused. "I'm not apologizing. That woman had military training. That's the real unfair advantage." Their session was interrupted by the club's board president. "Alexander, we need to discuss your membership status. The tampering incident violates multiple club policies, and there are legal implications given the wager involved." Meanwhile, Maya met with the Westwood Youth Development Center's director, Dr. Elaine Jackson. "Several prominent members of the business community have reached out," Dr. Jackson explained. "They're impressed with what happened at Hawthorne and want to expand our programs." Then she presented Maya with an unexpected proposal. "We've been developing a STEM leadership academy for young women of color. The mentorship component is crucial, successful role models who can show these girls paths they might not have imagined for themselves. We would be honored if you would consider taking a leadership role in this initiative." 3 days later, Maya reviewed the settlement offer from Preston's legal team, a $100,000 donation to the center, double the original amount, a public apology, and a request for a private meeting before any statements were made. That meeting took place in Resonance Biotech's conference room. Preston entered with his attorney, his usual swagger diminished, designer attire replaced by a conservative business suit. "Dr. Washington, I want to apologize for my conduct. The truth is, I've built my entire identity around being the best. When you threatened that, I reacted poorly, unethically." His rehearsed statement gave way to something more genuine. "I've never faced someone who shoots for reasons beyond trophies or recognition." It was unsettling. Maya considered his words. "Mr. Preston, I didn't enter that competition seeking to unsettle anyone. I was honoring my father's legacy. Your actions undermined the integrity of a sport you claimed to respect and dishonored the charity you agreed to support." Preston nodded, genuine shame crossing his features. "That's why I've increased the donation and accepted the 3-year suspension from competition." The settlement was signed, and as they prepared to leave, Preston extended his hand. "For what it's worth, you're the finest shooter I've ever competed against. Your father taught you well." Maya accepted the handshake briefly. "He would say I was already a good student. Sometimes the right teacher just helps us discover what was already there." 2 weeks later, Maya stood before the inaugural class of the Washington STEM Leadership Academy, funded by Preston's donation and contributions from corporate sponsors who had witnessed the competition. Her first class consisted of 20 young women from Boston's most underserved neighborhoods, their expressions mixing curiosity with cautious hope. "Good morning," she began, her voice strong and clear. "My name is Dr. Maya Washington. I'm not a champion marksman or a celebrity. I'm a scientist, a business leader, and a daughter who learned that the steadiest hands belong to those who have faced the greatest challenges." She touched the braided leather bracelet beneath her watch. "Today, we begin with fundamentals. How to stand your ground. How to focus when others doubt you. How to hit targets others think are impossible." 6 months later, at the center's fundraiser, Maya addressed the gathering. "1 year ago, I walked into a shooting range to honor a promise to my father. I expected to reconnect with a skill he taught me, then return to my life. Instead, I found myself in a confrontation that led to this academy and the community we're building together." When the foundation announced the annual Colonel Marcus, the Professor, Washington Excellence in Leadership Scholarship for young women pursuing STEM careers, Maya felt tears form. As the first recipient, a brilliant young woman from Roxbury who had overcome significant obstacles to excel in computational biology, accepted the honor, Maya touched her bracelet one final time. "This one's for you, Dad, for everything you taught me about standing my ground." Perhaps Maya's greatest victory wasn't defeating a champion who had underestimated her, but finding a way to transform a moment of disrespect into a movement of opportunity, building a legacy that honored both past and future. For those watching her journey, from being dismissed at the Hawthorne Marksman Club to confidently leading the Academy's programs, the lesson was clear: never underestimate those who stand before you. Behind their composed exteriors might lie determination forged through adversity, skills honed through dedication, and values anchored in experiences beyond understanding. And if you find yourself dismissed or overlooked, remember Dr. Maya Washington's journey, how a woman once ignored at an elite shooting range transformed a moment of humiliation into a movement of empowerment, one perfect shot at a time. 3 lessons from Maya's journey. In a world that often judges based on appearance rather than ability, Dr. Maya Washington's story reminds us of truths that transcend the shooting range. Lesson 1: Excellence needs no explanation. Maya didn't defend her presence, she demonstrated her worth through undeniable skill. When you face doubt, let your performance speak louder than your protests. Lesson 2: Legacy outweighs talent. Maya's extraordinary ability wasn't just about natural skill, but about honoring the teachings of someone who believed in her potential before the world recognized it. Who are you carrying with you in your moments of challenge? Lesson 3: True victory creates pathways for others. Maya's greatest achievement wasn't outperforming a champion, but creating opportunities for young women who might otherwise never see themselves in positions of excellence. Remember this: the world may underestimate you based on how you look, where you come from, or the spaces you enter. But your preparation, your purpose, and your precision in execution can transform momentary disrespect into lasting impact. What space have you been told doesn't belong to you? What skill have others suggested you couldn't master? What challenge seems insurmountable today? Take aim. Hold steady. And fire. If this story of Black excellence and quiet power resonated with you, I invite you to become part of our community breaking barriers together. Like this video to help others find this message of representation in leadership, share it with someone who needs this reminder of their own potential, and subscribe to Motivation for Success for more stories that illuminate the extraordinary capabilities within ordinary people. Remember, the only permission you need to excel is your own. I'll see you in the next video.